Just get him back how he was. Oh my gosh. Hi, I'm Ben, and I'm going to share with you some hacks to make your first stop motion animation. Is it wrong? Okay. I grew up watching Wallace and Gromit and Shaun the Sheep when I was little. My brother won a signed copy of Wallace and Gromit Curse of the Were-Rabbit. This is really important to me because on it, it had disc 2, which had an interview with Nick Park, and that he talked about how he was like creating characters for Wallace and Gromit and things like that. I got this book when I was about 12, and it had a lot of behind the scenes content. Cracking animation. Also teaches you a lot about the technique of stop motion and how to get started. I got this one, the Animator's Survival Kit. It's very technical, but there is some really interesting stuff in here, and it really breaks down a lot of complex animation terms. Like, I was trying to do a jump for Unlucky Jim, so I figured out that there's a squash, and then he stretches, and then he squashes again. It's hard to do it when there isn't anyone showing you how to animate, but this sort of breaks it down. Stop motion animation is basically where you set down a camera and then take a photo, and then move something a tiny bit, and then you keep taking photos, moving it a tiny bit each time, and then when you play it back, it has, well, the illusion of motion. Use anything you want to animate. The first time I tried animating, it was with blue tack and some Lego eyes. You can start with anything. You can start with plasticine, you can start with just objects around your house. Okay. When I start with an animation, I never really start with like an end product. I'd always have a nugget of an idea and then sort of build off it. This is sort of an example of a storyboard that I've done. This is my latest animation for Count Your Buttons Day. Usually when I start a project, I don't have the end goal like fully formed. It sort of grows with like scenes being added, and sometimes it can stay small. It doesn't have to be that long a film. I think the longest film I've ever done is 3 minutes. I came up with a character who's just unlucky, and that's why he's called Unlucky Jim. Almost all of my films I've animated in my bedroom. I've animated in the garage before. It's just a case of finding a place that's dark enough and blocking out the natural light so that flicker doesn't occur when you animate. Before you start animating, you do need to make your models and your sets. And I've got one here. This is Jim. I made him for Unlucky Jim. He's a Malvern armature. He's got little joints here that you can tighten up. His face itself is drawn on with marker pen, like white ball pen, and then you can erase it out. But what I found was it's quite dirty sometimes on his face, but yeah. You can get these tubs from Hobbycraft that have different multicoloured plasticines. Instead of buying like a big chunk, you can get all those colours for a lot cheaper. I'm talking right now with a camera, which is really interesting. Once you've created your models and your sets, you'll need something to capture it with. You can use your phone. There are these sort of clamps you can get for phones that you can use for animation. But what I started with was a DSLR or a camera. Now there's a wire sticking out of it, and it's because when you're animating, you don't want a battery-powered camera so that when you are taking the frame, you're not touching it. When you're animating with a camera, especially a DSLR, there is one button you need to be wary of. It's this one. If this is set to automatic, it means that your focus ring is going to change the focus. You don't want that. If you switch it to manual, it will lock the lens in place, and then you won't get as much flickering. The most important thing you can do is, this is a hot glue gun, you just plug it into the wall. It's always very, very, very important to stick everything down before you animate. Another really important thing about animation is lighting your scene. Now the first animation I didn't have proper lights, so after animating Pandora's Egg Box, I got 3 of these. They're just security garden lights. You can get them basically at any hardware store. I've used ring lights in the past, just for washing a scene full of light. But both of these are relatively cheap. Now you need to capture your frame. Now the way you'd do it is you'd connect this to the camera itself, connect this to the computer. You can use Stop Motion Pro on a phone. I think you can also get it on computer. The purpose of this software is basically to speed up the animation workflow. Having live view means that you can line up characters and scenery a lot better. A really handy tool you need when you're animating is onion skinning. The purpose of onion skinning is basically to show you how big a jump you want to add in the next frame. So if you want a big jump, you would move it a large amount, and on the monitor itself, it would show a large jump from your previous frame to the frame you're about to take. It's really nice having all of the things from home here. I use DaVinci Resolve, but I remember using iMovie when I first started. For a little bit of time, I also used Blender. All three of those are free to use. What you would do is you'd put in all your shots into sequence for your short film. You'd play it through, and I would write down a list of all the sounds that you would need for the animation. To record these sounds, I use this dictaphone. So I press record, do that. Ah! And I can there's a memory card in this, and I can connect it to the computer, and I can add that sound in. Or, if I want to preview, I can just listen to it there. Foley sound is the act of mimicking sort of real-world elements that you get in live action and putting it into stop motion. Now, because you have no sound to start with, certain sounds that you wouldn't even think of, you have to add. But adding all these sounds creates believability in your animation and just sort of brings it to life. Is that all right? Okay. The thing that's drawn me to animation, you can basically do anything. You don't have to have a character or a person that you have to direct. You can make your character, and it doesn't have to be a character as well. I know for Count Your Buttons Day, I was just moving buttons on a screen, but it looked like water on a wave.
One take wonder.
If I was to give myself some advice, I would say just start. Just pick up your phone and get an object in front of it and just take a photo and just move it. These films don't have to be polished or anything, they can just be for fun, and I had a lot of fun when I first started learning animation, just seeing something move in front of the screen.